Hello.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's finals week. Oh my gosh. I was talking. It's also Mother's Day.
It is also Mother's Day, and my mom asked me whether you were done, and I was like, no, I think it's next week.
It never ends. I'm part of a project that is starting up officially. We're starting up June 1st. So that's going to go on in terms of like academic work.
For the summer, yeah. Mm-hmm. And beyond.
And beyond. Yeah, the next 3 years. So there's that. I'm also doing some streaming with professors.
Mm-hmm.
So that's starting up at the end of May. What other? I've been trying to... My goal was to protect summer. So first of all, I have a 10-month contract. So that's that's how that works. So I try to be as protective of my summertime as I can just because... It gets really intense each semester, and by the spring, literally, so I've said this before, April is my least favorite month ever, because it's always like the intensity of everything from spring semester, but you're also building upon fall semester, and so it's like this weird cycle where summer is my time to be like, all right, brain needs a rest, I don't understand, I need to like chill out a little bit. So.
Yeah, I have a feeling that if it was not quarantine, we would probably be looking very seriously at traveling somewhere this summer.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we had Comic-Con plans, but
even somewhere longer and cooler.
Yeah, no, it's already hot.
Cooler meaning temperature, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think not Comic-Con is as cool as it gets for real. I mean, I think it's good. It's probably one of the most necessary but also appealing parts of the 10-month contract that you have is like you kind of try to condense a lot of work and you get this sort of refreshing time, which for people who are, trying to innovate and do research can be really beneficial.
Yeah. It's hard because there's so many things still. There's like planning, not to mention and being a projects, good teacher. And people are like, hey, you want to do this math ed thing? And I'm like, you know what? It sounds great, but not in the summer. Mm-hmm. That is I need my summertime to, refocus.
Totally, yes. What else is going on? Nothing really, I don't think. We have a new arrival desk from nice that got put together for the other room.
Room?
Yeah. Some other things around the house. We'll see.
I was making fun of how you said it.
Yeah, I know. I'm weird.
Accents. Yeah. Ready?
All right. Yeah.
I'm ready.
Juan's ready. Turn to page 283, The Chamber of Secrets.
Dun, dun, dun. Today's
lesson is called Forgotten Things. Synopsis. It is very warm in this room. Yes. The chapter begins with Harry and Ron plotting how to evade the teacher's vigilance and get to Moaning Myrtle. As they do, they learn that there will still be final exams. Mm-hmm. They find Ginny to be nervous with some secret, and Lockhart frazzled. Eventually, they persuade Gilderoy to let them go in the halls alone, but McGonagall spots them, and they instead claim that they were going to see a petrified Hermione. During that visit, Harry finds a crumpled paper in her hand, and upon reading it, discovers what Hermione had gone to read about before she was attacked. The creature in the Chamber of Secrets is a basilisk that has been using pipes to travel and parseltongue to speak. This lends even more credence to the idea that Myrtle was the girl who died, given that it was in a bathroom. They plan to tell McGonagall what they have found, but are disrupted by an emergency meeting of the staff in which McG shares that Ginny Weasley has been taken into the Chamber of Secrets. Ron and Harry resolve to act and go to see Professor Lockhart, who the staff has tasked with combating this terrible foe. He is actually attempting to flee, and before he can charm Harry and Ron, they disarm him and take him in tow to Myrtle's bathroom. Myrtle tells them about how she died and where it happened. Ron suggests Harry command it to open with Parselmouth, and it does. In the tunnels below, Lockhart takes Ron's wand and attempts to erase their memories, but the broken wand backfires. Cut off by fallen rocks, Harry continues on alone.
Harry. Yeah, so, okay, right at the beginning of the chapter, we get McGonagall telling the kids, like, oh, hey, your finals are next week or your exams are next week. And it brought me back again to our conversation last week she says, the whole point of keeping the school open at this time is for you to receive your education. It's like, lady, is that important right now? I don't know. Like, that's my general thing. Like, who really cares? Like, who cares about this? Mm-hmm. Shut down the school. And then, like, what was frustrating to me is that it gets to a point, like, you already know there's a monster at Hogwarts that seems to be attacking students, and so you have these, like, measures where you're trying to protect them but still maintain school as normal as possible. And then to the point where a student gets taken and then you're like, oh, we should shut down the school. And it's like, well, why didn't you do this? Like, if you were trying to be like, oh, let's keep going with the school, we're gonna walk people, like, from class to class, like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, totally. Yes.
They're so frustrating.
I had always wondered about why none of the professors seemed to be able to solve any of the mystery, right? So I was trying to put myself into this kind of thought experiment of, like, how would you figure out, say, that it was a basilisk? Mm-hmm.
Hermione figures it out.
Right, but she has the benefit of, like, the main pieces of evidence that Harry, Ron, and Hermione have access to are the diary and parseltongue.
Yeah.
And then the experience with Aragog kind of starts confirming things. So, like, okay, the professors don't have that, but really, how many creatures can petrify? I mean,
yeah. So this was I went through some forums because I was actually exploring a different question, but a question that came up was like, did nobody ask Myrtle how she died?
Right.
Like, was that just never part of it? And some people were like, well, maybe she was just too hysterical and, like, Dippet didn't want to, like, push any further and just, like, let her haunt the girls' bathroom for all of eternity. No problem. Not even caring about, I mean, that's kind of like her story.
But they knew she was the one that died. I mean, like, they look the same, right? So, yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah. But I was just thinking, like, I don't know. These are some brilliant witches and wizards. They couldn't figure it out. Dumbledore couldn't have figured it out, right?
No. Yeah,
anyway.
It is very odd. Oh, my favorite quote, though, like, related to this conversation is Harry in his head thinking, well, they're in Transfiguration and he's supposed to be turning these bunnies into slippers or something like that. And he goes, what had he learned so far this year? He couldn't seem to think of anything that would be useful in an exam. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, again, we're going to, like, what's really important here? Like, do you need to have the exams to, and back to my earlier comment last week, are they learning anything? Probably not. Like, everyone's just talking about how they're pure-blooded or not, you know? Instead, like, why don't you, I mean, this is an extreme.
Learned Expelliarmus.
Why don't you use this moment? That is Harry's spell. That is the spell. Why don't you use this moment to actually have a discussion? I know ethics aren't part of your explicit curriculum, but, like, why don't you just talk about things? Or, I mean, everything is like this dance around. Even, like, the question of two bins, the history of magic professor about the Chamber of Secrets is, like, kind of dismissed. Like, all of this is talking about learning opportunities here. Like, here, you have a rich amount of different areas to explore with what's going on in front of you, but no.
Right.
Transform these bunnies into slippers. Go for it.
Right. Well, I think sometimes it actually reflects kind of what real life teaching sometimes is like, where there's a bunch of different, there's a whole series of reasons that teachers use to avoid talking about, like, what's actually happening in front of their faces with their students. Part of it is like, well, if I focused on that, I would never actually get to, like, what I'm supposed to teach, which is possibly an argument. Part of it is, I think a frequent one is like, well, we don't need to talk about pure-bloodedness. Like, we're past that. Everyone, you know, it's not going on anymore. So there's, like, kind of a feigned ignorance of it where it's like, oh, yeah, well, maybe when Voldemort was powerful, like, whenever ago, or when, you know, Salazar Slytherin, like, 1,000 years ago. So,
but they have incidents. Hermione was called a mudblood in front of a bunch of people. Like, it's there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's my point.
So I was watching The Circle of Brazil, and I finished the series. And the thing that I kept thinking about was, so like all of the, okay, backing up if you don't know, it's this reality TV show, and basically they're like online personas interacting with each other, but they like vote people off, and there's one winner of the circle. And so something that the people were saying this time, it was kind of similar last time, is this like idea of like people not being real or like not being vulnerable, but like so much of that is just like, so when you're talking about possible reasons why teachers wouldn't talk about stuff like this in classroom settings or any sort of quote unquote sensitive topics, another piece is like the fear of like any sort of repercussion that comes from that. So if someone's going to be upset that like, what, you have no business talking about this like with my kid or whatever, or just even the idea of like, you actually have to care really deeply about another person to be vulnerable and open and honest with them. And I face that myself as someone who is like on the internet a lot, of like, there's many times when I want to say certain things, but then I pause because I'm like, I am in my head like, is it really worth like broadcasting to tons of strangers online versus like something more private that I could say in confidence to someone in person? And so then there's this like weirdness of like relationship building and like what it means to, in a classroom setting, like are you willing to have these relationships, these deep intimate relationships with all your students? And what makes it difficult is when you're one teacher and you teach hundreds of kids, that is like humanly an impossible thing to do. It's very difficult to do in an authentic and meaningful way for each person. So it's just like all sorts of issues all around, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Then you have Lockhart.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's dark. It's like one of the darkest turns, I feel like, for a character. Because it's not just that he made it up. He didn't make it up.
Yeah.
It's not a fiction. It's a straight up theft and lie and attack.
He's so casual about it. He's like, oh, I pride myself in memory charms. Like, no problem. And I was like, oh my God, this is so evil.
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal.
Another disappointing defense against the dark arts.
What I looked up to do research on, but I didn't really find anything that I wanted to talk much about, like from the research side of it. But what came to my mind was memory charms and just trying to understand, because I had always had this question in my mind of like, the broken wand backfires and it really messes up Lockhart. We'll find out in the future.
Yep.
Permanently, apparently.
Yes.
It's not entirely clear, if he's very good at memory charms, it's not entirely clear to what extent he alters other people's memories, the people he has stolen this stuff. And therefore, it's not entirely clear what his attack against Harry and Ron will be. Though he says this thing that, like, I'm going to tell them you were, like, stunned and shocked by what you saw, Ginny's body, and it couldn't save her or whatever. But, like, is he just going to do that? Basically, let me boil it down this way. The result of what happens to Lockhart when it backfires, I'm not sure if that's what the result he was going for would have been on Harry and Ron. Like, is it... I always wondered whether the wand in its backfiring, like, magnified the effect, or if he was really trying to, like, erase their memories completely.
Yeah.
Or if it was going to be, tinkered and...
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, so Ron's wand backfired many times already in this book. So the first one was like the eat slugs Malfoy, like, and so Ron ends up like spitting out the.
But that's what he
slugs.
was trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's other situations where it just kind of explodes.
Right.
Like it's not really anything. It just doesn't.
I bring it up because I often thought that would make a difference in how I would kind of judge Lockhart. Like if he was just trying to like manipulate, tweak, or if he was literally if he was addling like all of the people from whom he had stolen memories. But now on reading it again and like thinking about it again, I don't think it matters. It's very cruel, right? Like regardless of if it's the stealing of a memory, the erasure of a memory on purpose, like, is just brutal.
Yeah, it's interesting how the memory, a memory charm or any sort of memory charm is not illegal.
Yeah.
So
not only is it not illegal,
yeah, people use it. Like
the ministry uses it.
That's what we use.
Yeah,
we use it on Muggles.
Yes,
to forget because of the statute of secrecy, which must be abolished.
I did read about something. I can't remember exactly what the name of it was, but it was like the largest use of it. And it was like an attack. Did you look it up?
No.
It was like an attack by a green dragon, a green Welsh dragon.
Oh, yeah.
On
So
beachgoers.
that's in this story, actually, or in the Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, cool.
It's a little tidbit in the green, common Welsh green. Yeah. So one of my goals, I think, that I've set for myself is to read almost every single interview that J.K. Rowling has ever done. One of the questions, I couldn't find what I was looking for in this one, because you know how sometimes on the wikis it like says this is the citation, and then I browse the citation and I'm like, I don't see it, or maybe it's just like a little tiny reference. But in this one, somebody asked about Lockhart, like, did he ever recover? And she was like, no, and I'm happier that, or something about like, I'm happier that way, or something like that, because basically, yeah, he deserves it.
Yeah, oh man, it's cruel. It's rough. I mean, we know in real life that the loss of memories is really brutal.
Yep.
Yeah. And so the intentional erasure of memories is a terrible crime, in my opinion. It's just really, really awful.
Yeah.
It's because it robs people of their past, of the truth of who they are, right? It's just so brutal. I cannot really imagine very many things. One thing that was somewhat interesting was and I thought we wouldn't talk much about it because it's in later books, is that there are going to be instances under which torturing people with Crucio actually breaks memory charms in some cases. So that'll be in the 4th story, but yeah, it's really something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's also different kinds of memory charms. So like a question also was like with Hermione later on, and how she said that she had never done that kind of charm before, but it's because it's not the same one as the one that she used on her parents, which
right.
So there's like, I guess there's variations, but I would probably put Obliviate up there with Crucio, in my opinion, for things that I would not want witches and wizards to be able to freely do without any repercussion.
When we get to it, and it's a long way away, but what you're talking about with Hermione and her parents is one of the most complicated moral, philosophical, ethical moments of all the stories to me. It's one of the most complicated because of the loss of agency that she puts onto her parents. But, obviously that's a pretty gray area compared to what Lockhart is doing. Yeah. Which is pretty oh man, I just hate him so much.
I know.
I've been trying to hold back until this particular chapter just how much he frustrates me.
I mean, if Lockhart was a recurring character in this series, he would be like tied with Lucius Malfoy for me in terms of my most hated character. So we also see a glimpse of Percy, a glimpse of Ginny, as, per use in the book. You're just getting glimpses of them. Awkward as ever.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And then we find out about a basilisk. Dun, 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 the reveal. Which, of course, basilisk is in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It is unsurprisingly, Ministry of Magic classification number 5.
Do not domesticate. Unless you're...
the heir of Slytherin, also known as King of Serpents. And I think you might have mentioned this before. The first recorded basilisk was bred by Herpo the Foul.
Right.
A Greek dark wizard in Parselmouth. Like, I don't... Oh, yeah, because we have the trading card, right? Is that him? Or no, that's not him.
I don't remember why we talked about it exactly.
We talked about him before. As
I think the chicken's dying or something, or the rooster's dying.
Yeah, but isn't he related to somebody?
I don't know. We'll have to watch the old episode. Somebody can remind us if they remember where it came up.
Gosh.
We have hours of...
I think this answers your question earlier. If the food source is sufficient, the basilisk will eat all mammals and birds and most reptiles.
Yeah, but how are they getting to it?
The serpent may attain a very great age. Herpo the Foul's basilisk is believed to have lived for close to 900 years. And of course, the creation of basilisks are illegal, which, I mean, really, if anything that I see over and over in the series is that laws are just arbitrary. So, you know, use Obliviate, go for it. No problem. It's allowed. And then we get Moaning Myrtle, who, so Olive Hornby appears to be Myrtle's unfinished business.
Yep. Could you imagine anything more petty to come back as a ghost for?
So I read this whole...
Not to figure out who killed her,
This whole thing about Myrtle's tragic life. She was 14 when she died.
Yep.
She was 14. She was bullied because she had glasses, I guess, and also pimples. Like, she was just like, nobody cared about her, it seemed, at least the way she tells the story, and how she like was dead for hours before anyone bothered to find her. I don't know if that was in the chapter or if it was in something I read online that was like in a later chapter that's connecting to this, or in a previous chapter. I don't know, but
a lot of details.
Yeah, I know, there's so much. It's really sad though. And then so like, not only is she like bullied and whatever, runs to the bathroom, is crying, and then gets killed, but then instead of just like passing on, she chooses to stay in this state. I mean, she's a 14-year-old girl, like muggle born, like probably wanting to fit in. I saw also people making parallels between Hermione Granger and Moaning Myrtle. Hermione in the first book crying, going to the bathroom because mean things are said about her, but luckily for Hermione, Ron and Harry come and save her from a mountain troll. Like, what is this place? I don't know.
Trolls, basilisks,
so there's
giant spiders.
There's an article on Wizarding World written by J.K. Rowling, and she said that the inspiration for Moaning Myrtle was the frequent presence of a crying girl in communal bathrooms, especially at the parties and discos of my youth. This does not seem to happen in male bathrooms, so I enjoyed placing Harry and Ron in such uncomfortable and unfamiliar territory. That made me laugh.
Yeah.
And actually Myrtle was in one of the earliest she has on that same website, list of ghosts that she had already determined would be at Hogwarts. And her original name was Wailing Wanda.
Moaning Myrtle is better.
Wailing Wanda.
Yeah. That might have been a copy editor or some
a
good editor is like, I don't know about
this. Maybe something like, what about Moaning Myrtle?
Wailing Wanda.
Yeah. That's all that I got with Myrtle.
Yeah, I mean, wow, a lot, right? I mean, clearly we're coming to the climax of the story here and what it'll turn on. So we have 2 chapters left. So if you are looking forward, you should start to think about getting yourself a copy, digital or otherwise, of Prisoner of Azkaban coming up.
But we'll do another
book-wide one
summary.
Yeah, so probably like a month.
Oh, I was watching you saw me, you watched part of it too, the movie again. It's just so goofy.
Yeah, it is.
I started at, I don't know if this is where we left off with watching the movie, but I started with the Aragog. It's just so goofy.
It is
Ron
goofy.
is so dorky. I'm like, what are these, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it has a very different tone than the book.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even we watched, like, when Ron and Harry overhear that it's Ginny, and like in the book, it's like Ron like slides to the ground.
It's like it's serious.
But this, he's just like,
it's not
Ginny.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any of their fault. It was part of it. I think got shaped by the quality of the CGI, that there was a cartoony artwork to it, and I believe that's why for many people the series really turns at Prisoner of Azkaban movie-wise, because it feels more in line with the tone of the story that's being told. Yeah, no Hedwig with bulging eyes and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a great story. I'm really looking forward to finishing this one and talking about the last couple chapters. I mean, I think I already know. I've set myself up for what the lesson is going to be for
next chapter.
Yeah.
The
We'll
heir of
see. We'll
Slytherin. Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, so much. Look, J.K. Rowling is one of my heroes, as we know. Like, to write everything about this story is about like memories. It is the thing that's going through the line. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the way that she does this, like having Lockhart and be involved with memories and memory terms is just so brilliant. Like, and then you got the book, and that, you know, it's just the diary. It's what's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I'm looking forward to it. 2 more chapters.
2 more chapters.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was also thinking if I could have figured anything out from just the name Tom Riddle, but no, not really. Like, without his middle name, like, could I have figured out like who he was? No, I don't think so.
I think it's funny his last name is Riddle.
Yeah. Yeah. That was on purpose.
Yeah.
I also just for fun, I was thinking about how she clearly forced the name Marvolo as the middle name to be like the right letters, but
I'll look up that interview where she talks about it.
Does she?
No, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it exists out there.
How'd you come up with the middle name Marvolo? Like, well, I wanted Riddle. I liked Tom. And that was
It'd be funny.
it.
She'd be like, "Oh, my kid just like pulled those little magnet stickers off and handed them to me." I saw them. Yeah, she saw it on the fridge and just been like, "Oh my gosh, I have an idea."
All right. Well, I'm good if you're good.
Yeah, I'm good. Until next time.
Juan's ready.